Good evening. Tonight, the world has stepped into a moment unlike anything modern history has ever recorded. A few hours ago, U.S. satellites captured a signal that threw the Pentagon into the kind of silence that only happens when a superpower suddenly realizes it has gone blind. This wasn't a moment of celebration or triumph. It was a moment when a new era began between two superpowers. Quietly, without headlines, without announcements, without warning. The signal initially looked routine, then strange, then impossible. U.S. early warning satellites detect hundreds of heat signatures every day, missile launches, reactor shifts, space activity. But what they picked up this time wasn't the signature of any known weapon, ship, or missile system. It was something else. Something that used to be dismissed as rumor and buried in classified files. Something that froze analysts in place as they stared at their screens, unable to look away. When the first detection appeared, analysts considered it a glitch. 8 minutes later, a second spike. 14 minutes later, a third. Same coordinates, same energy pattern, same unnatural behavior. When the third spike was confirmed, someone inside the Pentagon finally spoke the words that no defense room in a superpower ever wants to hear. This is not an error. The coordinates pointed directly to a sealed, restricted, off-grid facility deep inside the Russian Arctic Circle, a location where Russia tests its most experimental and classified technologies, hidden in brutal weather conditions where satellites struggle to capture clear imagery. And yet, this time, America saw everything. When the high-resolution thermal imaging came in, analysts were stunned into complete stillness. At the center of the facility, something was glowing hot, white-hot, reactor-level heat. But it wasn't behaving like a reactor. It wasn't behaving like a missile booster. It wasn't behaving like any propulsion core ever seen before. It was something else. Something new. Something that existed only in war game scenarios, not in the real world. When the data was enhanced, the U.S. confirmed one thing. Russia had activated a system that had been rumored for years but considered myth by every analyst. A mobile, long-range, zero-warning strategic strike platform. Something faster than missiles, quieter than submarines, and invisible to satellites. It wasn't a missile. It wasn't an aircraft. It wasn't a drone. It was something capable of shrinking America's early warning window from minutes to seconds. And because of that, quietly, without public noise, without alarms, without any official announcement, 4 major U.S. cities were placed on discreet alert. Only through emergency channels. Only to top-level command. The most dangerous part wasn't that Russia had built something new. The most dangerous part was that Russia had activated it. Why? Why now? Why in the Arctic? Why without warning? Why at a time when the world is already fractured, politically, economically, and militarily? To understand this, you must understand the Russian mindset. Russia has always operated like a power that feels encircled. U.S. missile defense shield keep expanding. Poland, Romania, Japan, South Korea, Norway. Every radar array feels like a psychological noose tightening around Moscow. From the Russian perspective, a missile defense shield is never defensive. It is step one of an offensive strategy. And when a nuclear superpower feels cornered, it does not retreat. It innovates. This system is an equalizer. A do-not-push-me message. A declaration that Russia is no longer the weakened state the world assumed after the Cold War. The purpose of this platform is simple, to make the United States unsure. And strategic uncertainty is the most dangerous weapon of all. Inside the Pentagon, there was no panic, just urgency. Analysts ran heat models, simulated trajectories, compared behavioral signatures. Their conclusion was more shocking than the device itself. If Russia fired this system, the U.S. would not have enough time to guarantee a counter-response. Not enough time to confirm. Not enough time to react. Not enough time to think. The collapse of warning time is a nightmare scenario for all nuclear stability. Decades of strategy, trillions in defense infrastructure, entire doctrines built on deterrence. Everything collapses if you lose even a few seconds. Russia had just erased those seconds. But U.S. intelligence found something even more disturbing. This system may not be designed for direct attack. It may be designed for pressure. A psychological lever. A shadow weapon. An invisible threat meant to slow every American decision. To force hesitation. To manipulate policy. to hang uncertainty over every geopolitical move. NATO deployments, U.S. alliances, Arctic operations. Every decision would now carry a new shadow, fear. Then a second signal came from Russia. Encrypted transmission from the Northern Fleet shifted patterns. This was a pattern Russia only uses when it elevates nuclear posture. Not a launch, not an attack, just posture. But for superpowers, even posture is enough to trigger runaway escalation. This is why the U.S. quietly placed its cities on alert. Not because of Russia's behavior, but because of Russia's mindset. When great powers reduce reaction time, mistakes become more likely than attacks. Even if Russia activated the system only for demonstration, the U.S. would be forced to respond. And every U.S. response would look like escalation to Moscow. This is a spiral great powers fall into. Step 1. Russia activates a new system. Step 2. The U.S. tightens early warning. Step 3. Russia interprets hostility. Step 4. The U.S. deploys assets north. Step 5. Russia increases readiness. Step 6. Both sides enter a cycle, one that becomes nearly impossible to escape. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The 1962 Cold War standoff began in exactly this way. Rumors, misread intentions, escalations. And now in 2025, the Arctic incident has awakened the same ancient logic, powered by a new weapon, new fear, and new unpredictability. To put it simply, Russia has done something no nation, neither the U.S. nor China nor any other, has ever done. It activated a system that shatters the global assumption of warning time. The consequences are not just military, they are psychological, political, and strategic. Washington is now silently restructuring everything. Arctic surveillance routes are being shifted, space-based sensors recalibrated, joint command protocols rewritten. Everything is happening quietly, without media, without public noise, only within top command circles. Russia hasn't achieved superiority. It has achieved something far more valuable, leverage, a position on the global chessboard from which it can force hesitation in the United States. And hesitation, in geopolitics, is a form of deterrence. Right now, the world stands at a crossroads. Either Washington and Moscow manage their fear, or fear will escalate them. This is a burden of great powers. This is a reality the world is sleeping under tonight. What activated in the Arctic was not just a system. It was a reminder that technology is never neutral. It either builds stability or it destroys it. And tonight, the world has stepped into a new era, a silent era, a shadow era, a zero-warning era.